In this video, we'll be looking at a project management tool known as Pivotal Tracker. So Pivotal Tracker encompasses several of the ideas regarding Agile which we discussed this week. So basically what Pivotal Tracker does is it tracks user stories and velocity. So let's look at some of the functionalities of Pivotal Tracker. So you can go to this URL pivotaltracker.com and you can sign up as a new user. And after you sign up, you will most likely get a tutorial video, which I encourage all of you to watch, and it gives an overview of what all Pivotal Tracker does. So after you log in, you have to give, or you have to name your first project. So let's say we name it as IIT Software Engineering Project, right? And when I click on Create Project, you see several windows, several tabs, right? So the first thing which you see is known as a current iteration or the backlog. So this is similar to the product backlog idea which we saw this week, right? So this describes user stories that you're currently working on or stories which you have prioritized to work on in the current iteration, right? And Icebox is just like a dumping place where you can add ideas or stories which haven't been prioritized yet. Right. And here you can see that this is the length of the iteration. So let's say I choose my iteration or sprint to be 2 weeks. And so it gives the dates 18 to 21st August. And I can also add members to my team. So for example, right now I am the only one, but you can invite people to join this project and they become part of the team. So let's now try adding some user stories. So let's take the example of the Amazon seller portal itself. And if you recall, we had several user stories. So let's say I add one story in which I add a catalog item, right? And the story type, there are several story types, but right now we are just focusing on features or new features which we want to add. Priority, let's say it's of a high priority and you can assign points to it. So let's say I assign 2 points to it, which tells me that it's a medium sized user story. It's not too difficult. It's not too easy, right? I can add some description, some labels. So if I have links to a code, to a branch in GitHub, I can add that here. And I can also add tasks to this user story. So let's say if I want to add a catalog item, if that is the main user story, then maybe I can add a task saying create and review UI screen, or maybe create the DB table for catalog, right? So these are just some example tasks, right? Then I can add comments, and I can also assign or create owners for this, right? So I click on save, right? And so now I've created a user story and this is there in my current iteration, right? So Similarly, I can add another user story of, say, let's say if I want to add an inventory item, and this is also a feature, this is also, let's say, of high priority, and this also requires, say, 2 points, right? So here then I can add several user stories. Now another important feature of Pivotal Tracker is epics, right? So what are epics? So epics are, a collection of related user stories. We can group several user stories into what is known as an epic. So for example, catalog management, right, can be considered as an epic, right? Because we have several user stories like adding a catalog item, editing, viewing all of them, deleting a catalog item, all of them, all these user stories are part of this broad idea known as the epic. So then I can add some description and I can add a comment or something. I'm leaving everything blank, right? So catalog management is an epic. Similarly, inventory management can be considered another epic, right? And so now that we have added inventory, an epic, a user story known as add inventory item, now we can assign this to the the inventory management epic, right? And similarly, for the add catalog item, you can link it to the catalog management epic, right? And as we said, icebox are ideas or stories that have not been prioritized yet. So for example, customer feedback can be an idea which we want to implement in the future. Let's say order tracking is another one, right? Okay. So now that we have some user stories and epics, now we can also determine the velocity. For example, in this iteration, how many points can I complete, and that is known as the velocity. So let's say I choose my velocity to be 4, right? And now I can assign these user stories to different users or different people in my team, and right now I'm the only one. So let's say I start working on this, on the add catalog item user story. So I click on start, right? And then I start working on it, and then maybe I add some comments. Let's say I added the UI screen, please review, right? Maybe I can add an attachment, a file upload, or a link, right? So it gives me a trace of what all I have done, right? And let's say I have created the UI screen, I've created the database table, I've finished the tasks in this, right? Then what I can do is I can say that it's finished. And once I have finished a user story, then I can click on deliver. And what this does is this sends a status update to the product owner, and the product owner can look at this user story and look at the comments or look at the links provided, can review it and choose to either accept or reject this user story. So let's say I find certain shortcomings and or some bugs, and I as a product owner, I reject it and I say, let's say, too many bugs, many test cases are failing, please fix, right? Something like that. So now it goes back to the person who was in charge of this user story, right? So then I can choose to restart it and continue doing that. The same thing for the add inventory item, right? I can for this user story, I can similarly add multiple tasks, post comments, send or post links to the completed event, to the completed user story, and then I click on finish, and then I click on deliver, and now this goes to the product owner. Now the product owner can choose to accept it, right? And this shows that now in my current iteration or backlog, this user story is completed and this is ongoing, right? And if you look at, let's say, done, right? So this is an overview of what all can be done in this tool known as the Pivotal Tracker. And there are other features like analytics, for example. It shows project trends, right? What is the rejection rate? How many stories have been accepted? What is the story cycle time, right? What are recent epics? So these are different statistics which the product owner or members of the team can see. And these are useful metrics which will help the team move forward and improve in subsequent iterations. So this is a basic overview of this tool known as Pivotal Tracker, and you can use this or similar tools in your own software projects as well. And this gives you a clear picture of the entire software project. What are the different user stories? What is going on right now? And it can help members of the team to sync up together and move the project forward.